Hi everyone, this is Aaron Kriegshauser, your host here at Basis Technologies. Thank you for watching. Today we're going to talk with our technology evangelist, Jim Duggar, about ECC and S/4HANA dual maintenance. Jim, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
So Jim, what is the biggest difference between traditional software development versus developing in SAP?
Well, we could probably write a book about all the differences between the language, the architecture, everything. But the thing that I see affecting companies the most is the way that teams program and teams work together. And a lot of it comes down to the architecture of SAP and how everybody's sort of working in the same shared space all the time versus something in my previous experience in languages like C# or Java or .NET and C#, where we have a version control system, we have the idea of a working branch of different versions, we're checking code into these, and we're able to move back and forth between all the different versions and the configurations at any given time. So SAP's architecture, being sort of everybody sharing the same work folder at the same time, means you have things like accidentally overwriting each other's work, or promoting the wrong version of the object, or you of course have tremendous trouble going back a version and recreating a bug in an older version of the software to fix and then push forward to the other branches and those kinds of things. All those challenges are fundamentally very difficult in an SAP system, and they've been solved for us in software development in other languages maybe for a decade or two or even longer.
Okay. So in SAP development, how do you develop big changes?
Well, you have to work together very, very closely. Again, we've got a major challenge in the way that SAP is architected, and it forces us to be able, or it forces us to have to think about how we're going to actually propagate change to production. So let me give you an example. When I do a modest upgrade in SAP or a modest business as usual change, if I only have one SAP landscape, dev to QA to production, what I'm probably going to do is freeze all changes in production, right? And this will allow me to not have to worry about any of the things that are going to happen while I'm doing my project work or my next version release work as I'm doing those in development or as I'm upgrading the system. And then maybe one weekend when all of that work is done and all the testing is completed, that's right, we're going to bring all of IT in for a tough weekend, we're going to do cutover, and we'll be successful, right? So that's kind of been the traditional way. Now, when you're doing really big, long-running projects, you have to start thinking about what's called a parallel landscape, where you can actually do all of this in a project landscape or an N+1 landscape, so that you can continue to do changes in production and provide production support while you're doing your project work. And so, for example, if the work that we were doing were going to take several months, probably completely impractical to ask the business to not have any changes and no change support for that time period. We'd have to consider some other way, a sandbox, a parallel environment, something like that.
So that parallel environment would have its own dev system, its own QA system that's separate from the production support dev and QA system.
It absolutely would. And if we take the parallel from software development outside of SAP, I would create a working branch or a new version, right? And I would go in and I would edit all my code, I'd check in on my code, I'd do all my peer review, I'd do all my work in that working branch, leaving the trunk alone until it was time to go ahead and move those changes forward into the tip of the version control system. So we can't do that in SAP architecturally. So yeah, we go create a completely separate environment to do that work.
All right. So the big change everyone is facing is 2025 and S/4HANA. Can active control from Basis Technologies help companies migrate to ECC, from ECC to S/4HANA?
Yeah, I mean, the actual migration work has to happen no matter how you approach doing it, right? The challenge I think we have with S/4HANA is we're facing a situation where it's going to be a years-long project, maybe multiple years-long projects, not a month.
Right.
And so, go to your business and say, hey, we're not going to let you make any changes in production for, a couple of years. And then see if you don't get laughed out of the room for that kind of an argument. Yeah. I mean, it's not a realistic answer for any business, right? So we're absolutely going to have to create that parallel project track, maybe even multiple of them, in order to be able to get this work done. Now we've got a new problem that arises. How do we reconcile the changes that are made concurrently in ECC and production support with the defects that have been repaired and the project work that we're doing in the S4 system? How do we make sure that when we finally do cutover from S4 or from ECC to S4 that we don't reintroduce a bunch of regressions that we'd already repaired in production support, right? And then this is where the basis active control comes in handy, right? The ability to be able to automatically reconcile and retrofit all of those changes between both environments, keep them in perfect sync, handle the conflicts that naturally occur when you've got multiple developers working on the same code at the same time. But at the same time, let multiple developers do that, right? And don't prohibit them from being agile. So yeah, you're going to have to do a parallel track. It's the only way to get the job done.
Okay, great. So, what does business as usual development look like after an upgrade using these techniques?
Well, for me, I wouldn't want to do anything different than the way we did the upgrade. I mean, if we think about the right way to do business as usual change, make it agile, make it reliable, make it dependable, make sure we don't disrupt the business, being able to fully test and guarantee that a change you're going to make is going to be productive, and not have to freeze production to do it, not have to force a very onerous cutover schedule in order to be able to pull off the upgrade, those kinds of things. That's the natural approach. And again, we go back and look at automated build and Jenkins and the tooling that exists for DevOps outside of SAP. This is the way that everything is done, right? So being able to bring that kind of methodology forward, being able to perform the changes that way and business as usual change that way in SAP, well, we absolutely should be doing it that way, right?
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Jim, for sharing your perspective on how organizations can transition from ECC to S4HANA using agile practices with Active Control. If you want to know more about Active Control and how it can help your SAP change and release process, please visit us at basistechnologies.com. Thank you all for watching.